Senior Moments, sponsored by the Empowering Seniors Group on News Talk KVNU, 102 FM and 610 AM.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Senior Moments Show. My name is Bryce Patton, here with my fabulous co-host, Sid Roeder. How are you today, Sid?
I'm fabulous, Bryce.
Excellent. So I can just call what mood you're in by
Absolutely. Just call it, because that sets my mind for the day, which is
perfect.
Great.
I hope I'm always in a good mood, and I'm happy to do that. Well, I'm excited. We have a new member with our Empowering Seniors Group with us today. But before we get into our guest that's part of that group, do you want to tell us about our sponsor?
I would be delighted to. Our sponsor is the Empowering Seniors Group, which is a group of professionals that have dedicated their time and effort to provide information to seniors, their family members, caretakers, and really all those wonderful people that listen to us every Saturday. And if you'd like to learn more about the Empowering Seniors Group, you can do so online at empoweringseniors.info, or you can email us at empoweringseniorscv@gmail.com, and the CV stands for Cache Valley. And lastly, if you'd like to reach me personally, you can call me at 435-512-6406.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you for doing that. Have you gotten any phone calls recently about...
No, it's been pretty silent recently. I think some of our guests on the radio show have gotten a call here and there, but no one's called me lately.
They haven't been calling you? Okay, well, call to action. If there's anyone you want to hear about on this radio show, you better give Sid a call. Well, I'm excited. We have Justin Wall with Wall Estate Planning.
Wall Estate Solutions.
I'll get it one of these days. You're now a part of the Empowering Seniors Group, which we're stoked to have you a part of.
Thank you for having me.
Do you want to just tell us about yourself? I know we had you on just a little while ago, but you want to go ahead and just tell people who you are, kind of what your business is and why you do it?
Sure. So Justin Wall, I'm an estate planning and probate attorney. Basically what I do is I help people transition their assets. When people pass away, obviously, they'll usually own something like a house or some vehicles or some financial accounts. Whatever you own, whatever's titled into your name, needs a way to transfer to the next generation. So my job is to make sure that if you've done estate planning, we set that up so that you can transfer those assets in a way that's hopefully efficient, that works really well for your situation. Or if you haven't set anything up, then we go into a process we call probate, which is usually done through the court systems to make sure that we can transfer the assets in a way that's kind of built for everybody that hasn't done estate planning. And so that's my job, that at a high level, just helping people get ready to transfer those assets when we pass away.
So what are some of the circumstances under which probate occurs? Yeah,
good question. So probate is the process of transferring the assets for someone who hasn't done an estate plan. And the reason that it's necessary is because just because we know who your heirs are, it's usually the kids by statute, and most people are okay with that. A lot of my clients will set that up anyway. The problem is there's no way to transfer title to the children after the owner of the property has passed away. So, for example, the owner on the deed, legally, you know this, Sid, the only person that can transfer that deed is the actual homeowner. We need that signature, and we need that recorded with the title company in order to effectuate the legal transfer. So, obviously, if you die owning that home, well, now you've got to make that transfer without that signature. And that's where we have to get the courts involved. So we go to probate, we put in an application. Usually it's one of the kids or maybe the surviving spouse who will go in and say, well, this person has passed away. They owned this property and we're the legal heirs for that property. So we open a probate, we name somebody to be the personal representative of the estate. And as soon as the court is satisfied that all of this looks in order, they will name somebody to be the personal representative. That person will receive letters from the court, and those letters will signal to everybody involved, the buyers, the mortgage company, the title company, that this person has authority to act on behalf of the estate.
So what's a typical timeline for probate?
Good question. So at a minimum, in the state of Utah, we have a 3-month creditor period that we have to run through in order to finish the probate off. So the timeline would be as soon as we can get the application filed, plus the creditor claims period, and then maybe some afterwards if it takes us a while to close, maybe because there's a dispute or something else that comes up in the case. Minimum, probably 3.5 months, 4 months if everything goes by the book and there are no issues or no hangups or anything like that. So it does take some time, and it's a lot more than what we could do if we'd set up an estate plan in advance.
So do those get messy? Are they pretty clean and dry? I mean, I always hear probate, and I'm like, everyone tries to avoid it.
Yeah.
Right? And so it just seems like it ends up getting pretty messy. Is that normally the case? Or sometimes?
Every case is different. I mean, sometimes when clients come to me and they want to set up a probate, we can tell in advance that this is going to be a problem, right? And then we're going more formal routes. We're trying to close out people's opportunities to bring litigation, to bring lawsuits, and there are certain legal maneuvers we can make in court in order to do that. And then sometimes people come in and they say, well, mom and dad have passed away. We've all gotten along forever, and we're all on the same page with what needs to happen. Those ones are, you never know, right? Sure, let's give it a shot. Let's make this as easy as we can so we're not opening any problems that we don't need to protect against, but we also need to be on the, vigilant. Things will come up and people will get surprised and people will, this is the house, mom and dad's house. And for a lot of normal American families, this is maybe the biggest windfall they're ever going to get in their lives. And so there's a lot of tension because there's a lot of financial stress at a time that's already stressed anyway. So in a lot of those cases, they will turn to litigation. They will start having disputes or fights. What I like to do in my practice is make sure that we're all talking to each other. If we're on the same page, at least we can get things resolved, hopefully quickly, and if that's possible. And if not, sometimes we do have to go to court anyway. So it gets messy. It can get very ugly. Not always. The process itself is pretty straightforward. If you do it by the book, we can have it done in, again, 3.5 or 4 months with just doing paperwork. But it's the incentives, and it's what people are fighting about.
Now, if somebody has a home and they have maybe just a little more to pay off on it or whatnot, and someone passes away, do those payments stop, or does that continue during this whole probate process and somebody has to pick up the tab? Yeah,
so good question. You're talking about the mortgage,
right?
The mortgage, we have to deal with all of the creditors. So there's the mortgage, there's the credit card companies, if there's a loan on the vehicle, if there's, mom and dad lent money to little Sally and she needs to pay them back, all of that needs to be taken into consideration. The mortgage in particular is a secured creditor, so there's specific things we have to keep an eye on with that. But yes, it needs to be taken care of. Usually what we'll do is we'll say, as soon as we can, as soon as they contact me, we're reaching out to the mortgage company and we're saying, we've got a probate to run here and we might need a deferral or might need something else. We can work with the mortgage company. Usually they're pretty good to work with us because they don't want to foreclose on the case. As long as we're communicating with them, we can get that taken care of. Sometimes that means someone's picking up the tab and making payments until someone takes ownership or until we sell the house. And sometimes it means we're in deferral until we can figure something out.
What are some, we're already coming up on our first break here, so I shouldn't ask a long question, but what other typical problems do you come across other than disagreement amongst the heirs?
Yeah, disagreement between the heirs. Disagreement between creditors is another big one. If you have a credit card company that wants to make a claim, then we have to go through and decide, is this something that we need to pay or is it something that we need to reject? And then sometimes that'll give rise to some litigation. I did have one case where we were fighting over mom's body. There was a will that said, and maybe we should save this for after the break because there's a little bit there. But long story short, it was a will where everything was divided 50% to the two kids, between the two kids, and then there were two kids that were disinherited entirely. And those two children ended up basically holding mom's body hostage, trying to settle for a portion of the estate. And that, anyway, long story, probably too long for the time we have left.
We might have to come back to that after the break. This is the Senior Moment Show. When we come back, we'll also make sure that you get contact information for Wall Estate Solutions. Did I say that right? Yep. But right now, we're going to take a short break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Hi, this is Tyler. Recently, my father passed away, and White Pine provided the funeral services for our family. They were friendly, thoughtful, and attentive to every detail. It isn't often that a loved one passes away, so it was very important to my family that everything be handled just right. Because my dad was loved by so many people, we had a lot of family and friends that traveled from out of town. I really appreciate how White Pine Funeral Services made sure everyone was comfortable and that the focus was where it needed to be, on my dad and my family. They really took care of us during this tender time.
White Pine Funeral Services, here when you need us most.
Did you know 1 in 3 people will visit a nursing home? Did you know that once there, they will stay there for an average of 3 years? Did you also know there are insurance options that can help cover this experience? Hi, I'm Tracy Ferris with Blue Water Health Insurance. It's not cheap to stay in a full-fledged nursing home. Long-term care insurance can help you or a loved one get the care they need and deserve. If you wait until you need it, you may be too late. Give me a call at 435-890-8155.
Getting around your home should be easy and safe. At RT Med Mobile, They provide wheelchairs, stair lifts, ramps, and electric lift chairs to help seniors maintain independence and comfort. Their friendly team offers free in-home consultations to find the perfect solution for you or your loved one. Locally owned and here to help. Call 435-260-6171 today. RT Med Mobile, because your mobility matters.
You have a lot of options when it comes to buying or selling a home. Do you list it online, sell it yourself, or do you have a realtor help? It's a major financial and emotional decision. A realtor is the liaison between buyers and sellers and really helps you navigate complex contracts, deadlines, and disclosures.
Hi, this is Sid Roeder with Achievement Realty.
I work for you to get the best outcome for your situation. Let me earn your trust with a free consultation and a free market analysis. Call me today at 512-6406. Then list it, sell it, and move on.
And welcome back to the Senior Moments Show. My name is Bryce Patton, here with Sid Roeder, as well as Justin Wall from Wall Estate Solutions. Justin, before we left, you were telling us a story, but before we get to that story, would you mind sharing your contact information? So if people have questions and want to reach out and see what it takes to plan or go through things and you can help them out, would you share that?
Yeah, sure. So Justin Wall, estate attorney. Best number to reach me for a consultation, 435-294-0346. That's 435-294-0346, or you can go to wallestate.law and set up an appointment digitally there.
Awesome. Okay. I think what we're all, I shouldn't say dying to hear, but we're excited to hear this family dispute with the kid, two sets and they're holding the body ransom. Let's hear about this.
So for starters, right, I got this phone call. And actually, this was my very first case. When I first started out, the very first probate case I ever had. I get this call, and it's one of those where you're like, I got to take it because it's my first case, and I'm going to run with it. The call was from this lady who was on her way from Chicago. At the time, I was living in Arizona. She says, yeah, I need you to help with my probate. It wasn't a very big case. They had a mobile home, probably worth $40,000 or $45,000 at the time, and just stuff, household items, personal effects. So it wasn't a big estate. And this is a little tangent here. The biggest fights tend to come out of these tiny estates. Probably not worth what it would take to fight those cases through litigation. Anyway, so I meet with this client a couple hours later at her home in Arizona. And apparently, she told me that she had two brothers that were both violent felons, convicted, recently released from prison, and she wasn't sure where they were, except that when she came to the house after she'd talked to me originally, they found mom's body on the bed, untouched, but the whole house had been ransacked, and somebody had run through and they'd taken the family dog, they'd taken the firearms, they'd taken, looking for this will because they knew they'd been disinherited, and if we can't file the will, then it defaults to the statutes, which is equal shares to kids, right? So she's having a hard time, and she's wondering, well, what can we do to try to pull this all back together? Anyway, long story short, well, maybe we just tell the whole story, right? This lady hired me to open the probate. She was named as a personal representative. Luckily, she had a copy of the will, but the will was silent on what to do with mom's body. And in Arizona, so when you go to the crematorium or the funeral director, they have to follow the instructions written in a will or written in some kind of a document that gives them instructions, or they have to take direction from a majority of the next of kin, which is often the surviving spouse. If it's the kids, it's a majority of the kids. Well, we didn't have a majority because there was my client and her one brother, the good kids, and then there was these other two brothers out there at large who wouldn't agree to this. We couldn't get their signatures. We did get in touch with them, but they weren't willing to cooperate. So basically they just said, we will sign those papers if you give us a share of the estate. Basically their share of the estate. They wanted their full 1/4 share.
Sounds like blackmail to me.
Yeah, that's in a lot of ways. Yeah. Like I say, holding mom's body hostage. Anyway, so we ended up going to the court and getting an emergency order and saying, hey, this isn't fair. We want my client appointed as an emergency personal representative just to handle the funeral arrangements. And then with the order from the court, we were able to get my client to go to the funeral director's office and say, now I have the authority. We don't need a majority anymore because I'm the only one in the estate that can speak for funeral and burial arrangements. And that's how we set it up. And we got it through that way. But it was still Afterwards, the whole probate was a mess because these two brothers kept coming out and they kept saying, well, we're going to burn the house down. And they slashed their tires at the funeral and they took the podium at the funeral when they weren't even supposed to be there. There were a whole bunch of things that just came out of the woodwork. Now, this is not a horror story. This is not a normal case, right? But it is something that comes up from time to time, and people can get very, litigious. Like I said earlier, in these cases, sometimes you go in knowing that we're going to have problems, and they end up being about as bad as you expect or worse. But most cases, not most cases, probably a majority, people tend to get along a lot better.
Sounds like you had your first case was baptism by fire. That's kind of crazy. Yeah, Bryce, you were waving at me. Did you have a question?
I was scratching my head. No, but I was actually just curious about how you guys work with the banks, and you work with these outside agencies to make this all happen, to help the families out. And could someone do that on their own, or is that something that they need a lawyer to be able to step in and take care of?
So there's the good question. So there's a lot of ways to handle a personal representative and a probate appointment. Some people will name a bank in their will or their trust to serve as the personal representative. And the statutes say that if you're named in a will, you're first priority. So over the spouse, over the kids, over anybody else. So when we get a will through that says, we just want a bank to handle this, there are banks out there that'll serve as personal representative. And usually if you've got a professional fiduciary that knows the ropes and knows what they're doing, they're not typically going to get an attorney involved unless there's a dispute or a contest that's going to take litigation. For the rank and file, if you haven't done an estate plan, usually we're looking at either the surviving spouse or one of the kids. The question was, well, can people do this on their own? And I think that's a very case-specific question. For simple estates where the family dynamics are very straightforward and everybody's getting along, you still have a lot of paperwork that needs to be done right. So it wouldn't hurt to have somebody at least on for advice and counsel, if not for paperwork filing and things like that. I'd say, it's a good idea to have an attorney for the personal representative in that regard. For more complex estates, if you have a lot of family dynamics issues with that, mixed families, high value property, more complex estates, you're going to need an attorney just about every time.
Yeah, and I'm just speaking from some real estate experience that I have, and I don't know what the situation was, if legal counsel was entered into the process a little late or something, but the bank had started foreclosure proceedings because no one was paying or able to pay the mortgage.
Yeah.
And they had already sent someone out to put a lockbox on the house and mow the lawn, and we're 2 days apart away with probate.
Yeah, and that's the other way that banks will get involved. I was talking more about being the personal representative, but banks are often creditors of estates, whether it's for credit cards or mortgages or other loans that they have due. And we have to work with banks in that regard. We have to deal with the creditors in any case. And so that starts by filing the creditor claim and letting the 90-day run. But if it's a secured transaction like a mortgage, then we have to deal with whatever mortgage claim they have against the estate.
Yeah. We're already coming up on our second break here. So maybe, Justin, I want to give you one more opportunity to mention your contact information. And then when we come back, I think we should talk about a good way to avoid probate.
Sounds like a plan. So Justin Wall, estate attorney, again, 435-294-0346. That's 435-294-0346. Or you can sign up for a consultation at my website, www.wallestate.law.
Super. Thank you, Justin. Let me talk about our sponsor again really quick. Our sponsor for this show is the Empowering Seniors Group. If you'd like to learn more about the Empowering Seniors, you can do so online at empoweringseniors.info, or you can email us at empoweringseniorscv@gmail.com, and the CV stands for Cache Valley. This is the Senior Moment Show. We'll take a short break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Are you tired of feeling unwell and not knowing why? At Next Level Health and Wellness, we hear you. We specialize in uncovering the root causes of your discomfort, whether it's gut health, hormone imbalances, or emotional and mental blocks. With personalized plans, advanced lab testing, and evidence-based holistic nutrition practices, we guide you toward lasting health and wholeness. Awaken your healing potential with a team that listens, understands, and supports you wherever you are. Visit nextlevelhw.com to start your journey to feeling better today.
Hi, this is Bruce with Comfort Care. One of the ways we help loved ones stay in their home is by assisting with daily tasks. These may include bathing, meal preparation, medication reminders, and housekeeping. We even help with shopping, transportation, and errands. Most of all, we offer a trusted level of care. Let us help you live your best life possible with Comfort Care. This is Bruce, and you can call me at 754-7676. Comfort Care, 754-7676.
This is Scott with Cache Valley Pharmacy. Are you struggling to find affordable GLP-1 medications? Cache Valley Pharmacy has you covered. We're now compounding GLP-1s like semaglutide and tirzepatide personally formulated for you, and every batch is tested for quality and sterility. Have your prescriptions transferred today and let Cache Valley Pharmacy help you with your personalized weight loss journey. Cache Valley Pharmacy, keeping it local, online at cachevalleypharmacy.com.
Need a helping hand? The Bear River Association of Governments, also known as BRAG, is here for you.
They assist seniors with in-home services, provide utility bill relief through the HEAT program, and offer rental assistance to keep you housed.
Need help with tax prep? Their experts ensure you get the refund you deserve. And for veterans, they're here to connect you with the benefits you've earned.
BRAG is your local resource for a stronger today and a more secure future. Call today or visit brag.utah.gov.
At Maple Springs Senior Living in North Logan, we understand that entrusting the care of your loved one to someone else is a decision not taken lightly. That's why we go above and beyond to create a nurturing environment where your family becomes our family.
When I found Maple Springs, it was like a weight lifted off my shoulders. The staff here really cares, and Mom is thriving.
The activities and social events have brought so much joy to Dad's life. I can see a positive change every time I visit.
We know that your loved one's well-being is your top priority, and it's ours too. Learn more at maplesprings.living.com.
And welcome back to the Senior Moments Show. My name is Bryce Patton here with Sid Roeder, and we've been speaking with and hearing some interesting stories from Justin Wall with Wall Estate Solutions. Now, Justin, we've been talking about this. I mean, it just seems like probate, they can be a nightmare. You told us some stories that were pretty interesting, to say the least.
They get out there.
So how does somebody go about avoiding those situations or trying to make it as smooth as possible so that your kids or whoever it is doesn't have to deal with that?
Yeah. So the thing to remember with probate is it's only there to transfer assets that can't be transferred because the owner has passed away. So if you have a small estate where there's not really anything, you don't own your home, you don't own a vehicle, your bank account is minimal. In the state of Utah, if your total value of your estate is less than $100,000, or you don't own any real estate, then we can transfer that with a small estate procedure that's relatively streamlined. Okay. If the estate's larger than that, then we need to be worried about probate and be looking into what we can do to avoid it. And there are several mechanisms to make this happen. I think the best one is to set up a trust, right? What we're doing is we're transferring title now out of your name and into the name of the trust. So we haven't given it away per se. It's not like we're giving it to the kids now, which would also avoid probate, but then you don't own your property anymore, right? What we're doing with the trust is we're saying the trust is the owner. So when I pass away, the trust will remain the owner, and there are provisions in the trust that will kick in when I die to allow for the transfer of assets. We name your trustee, which is in place of the personal representative. That person can now sign the deed and transfer the vehicles and transfer the bank accounts and pay off the creditors on your behalf, and we didn't have to get the probate courts involved in that transaction at all. It does take some pre-planning. We don't do trust-based plans on the fly after you've passed away. It has to be done by you during your lifetime while you have the legal capacity to do it.
And then obviously when things change, you need to update the trust, correct?
Yeah. Every now and again, if you have a marriage in the family, a death in the family, if something changes with your property, one of the biggest reasons that trusts fail is because people will fail to transfer new assets into the trust. So a number of times through my career, we've had a trust that's come to us and they've said, well, what are my next steps? We look through the documents. With other attorneys, sometimes we'll see the documents have been drafted, but the deed is still in their name and the accounts are still in their name. Everything is still in the individual's personal name. So the trust doesn't actually do anything because now we still have to transfer title out of the individual's name and either into the trust or into the names of the beneficiaries, depending on the case. You ask about updates. When you have something change like that, especially with your assets, it's important to make sure that those assets are transferred into the trust. There are also changes with the law that happen from time to time that might make a difference with how those assets are taxed when they transfer to the beneficiaries. We recommend every 3 years or so having your estate looked at. That doesn't necessarily mean it needs to be updated every time, but a good review from a good estate attorney every 3 years or so.
So you were talking, so typically, obviously, what goes into a trust is real estate. You mentioned vehicles before, but if there is a change in vehicle, that's something you'd have to get in there, because what happens with the car you forgot to mention?
Yeah, good question. So vehicles. So the vehicles can be transferred into the trust, or in the state of Utah, there's an alternative method where we say we're going to use a survivorship affidavit. So, and the survivorship affidavit basically says, when I die, if I still own this vehicle, transfer it into my trust or transfer it to my beneficiary, you name the beneficiary of that vehicle, okay? And we'll set those up, and we can set those up after you've passed away. But in Utah, there is a limit. We can only have that for up to 4 vehicles registered with the MVD. So people think, well, I've got 2 cars, I'm good. And then after they pass away, we find out they had a snowmobile and a 4-wheeler and a whole bunch of other things that should have been registered or were registered in their name, but it was more than the 4 limit, right? So that's where vehicles will come into play. If we need to transfer more than 4, then that's where it becomes a problem.
What kind of a problem is that? I mean, is that going to take up a lot of time?
It's probate. So if you have 5 vehicles, 4 of them can transfer by virtue of the affidavit, and the 5th one doesn't have a way to transfer. So if it's just in your name and there's not a joint owner with right of survivorship, you have an asset that's in your name and title can't transfer without probate.
Oh, that sounds complicated. What other things are items that you would put in a trust?
Yeah, we'll typically recommend putting in a revocable trust. We'll want to put everything into it. So your personal property. People wonder, well, what about my furniture and my TV and my shoes and my books and everything like that? We can assign that in with an assignment of personal property, where we transfer everything that you own that doesn't have a legal title that says otherwise, that transfers directly into the trust. And then when we're down to our legally titled assets, people usually know what those are. It's your house, it's your vehicles, it's your accounts, maybe retirement accounts, checking and savings accounts, investments, business interests, things like that. For the revocable trust, we're going to want to transfer all of that into the trust so that there's nothing out that gets left out of probate. If there are a few things, like if there's one vehicle or if, personal property, things like that, we can get by with a small estate affidavit. But as a matter of best practices, we just transfer everything in.
And how does a trust and a will work together then?
Yeah, good question. So a will is nothing more than a way to supersede the default statutes that say who gets what. So when we plan with the trust and we transfer everything into the trust, everything transfers out of the trust. And if we do it right, we don't need a will. What we do when we set up a trust is we create what we call a pour-over will. And basically what we're saying there is the will transfers everything that might still be into my name, transfers it into the trust so that the trust becomes the owner anyway. It's kind of like a safety net in that way.
Awesome.
Well, I'm glad that's your profession, not mine. Sounds very complicated. And sadly, this was a great show. I think everybody probably understands things a little bit better and thinks about planning with a trust. And this ramps up for your phone number, Justin, one more time.
Yeah, best number is 435-294-0346. That's 435-294-0346.
Thank you, Justin, and thanks for coming in today. This is the Senior Moments Show. We hope you tune in again next week.